everyone, Elisa here, coming at you with some real-life career advice. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm a product manager in the tech world, and I've made my fair share of career blunders. But I'm making these videos so that you don't have to go through quite as many career challenges as I did. Today, we're talking about failure. Now, failure is nearly inevitable, no matter what position you're in, what type of company you're in, or what salary you make. You probably will fail at some point in your career. I can promise you this much. So this was a really tough pill for me to swallow when I entered the workforce because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. My parents tell me that when I was in first grade, my first grade teacher told them that I was too much of a perfectionist, and I was 6. I always struggled with getting negative feedback or just not performing very well when I was in school, but I really did feel like in school I could have quite a lot of control over whether I failed or not. If I studied enough, if I put enough effort into my projects, I could probably get a good grade. But everything changed when I entered the professional world because work is so much more nuanced than school. You can't just study and ace a test. It's really subjective, unlike school. So sometimes in work, no matter how much I tried, and no matter how many hours I put in, I'd still sometimes fail. And that sucked. So after enough years in the workforce, I started to see that failure at work is inevitable. We are all human. We are all flawed. Nobody has a perfect track record, especially in the workplace. And one more thing I want to call out. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Most of us are on a 40-year career journey. So the first couple years in your career are probably going to be filled with a lot of failures. You cannot expect to be perfect in the very beginning of your career. It's just unrealistic. But rest assured, even the savviest, most intelligent, and accomplished people still fail from time to time. One of the more recent failures that's happened in the tech scene in 2020 is the failure of Quibi, which was a streaming service that specialized in quick bites of entertainment optimized for viewing on mobile. It had about $2 billion worth of investment, and it failed in about 6 months. And naturally, I had a lot of questions about what led to this failure. Did they assess the market to see if there was a need for a streaming service like this? Did they do alpha or beta testing? Did people see this failure coming? And of course, as a product manager, I have to wonder, who was in charge of product when this was getting created? Well, I researched that and turns out that the chief product officer for Quibi was extraordinarily accomplished. Like, the accolades this guy has are incredible. I won't name all of them, but I'd say his most significant accomplishment is that he was a co-creator of Pandora, the music streaming service. He's big league. So the chief product officer is this hugely accomplished person, and yet he still failed. No matter what, failure is inevitable. We are all flawed. None of us are going to survive through life without failing in the workplace or just failing in life in general. It's just part of our wonderful journey here on Earth. So this brings us to the question, how do we cope with failure in the workplace? Well, for me, I read a book recently that completely changed my perspective on how we connect ourselves with things that we create. And not just create like creative writing or making videos, but things we create even at work, any type of output that we have, like a presentation or a project or a paper. Now, this book is called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and I cannot recommend it enough. Please read this book. Just do it. Just read it. In this book, Gilbert talks about artists in the Renaissance period who were burdened with the label of being a genius. Now, this put a ton of pressure on them and almost made them hesitant to create more. A more recent example she points out is the author Harper Lee, who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird. And Harper Lee never really wrote much after that one famous book. And the reason for that is because Harper Lee said that when you're at the top, there's really only one way to go. She was labeled as this genius, as someone who could do no wrong. So she was terrified that she was going to write something that would be a flop. But Gilbert points out that that's a huge shame because, sure, Harper Lee might have written additional books that were complete and epic failures, but she also might have had some immense successes within those failures. So it's a real shame that she just was too concerned about failing to continue on with creation. Gilbert ends up concluding that it's better to say people have genius than to say that they are genius. It's so important to disassociate people with their ideas. This goes the other way too. It's important to recognize that people's ideas can be failures, but that doesn't mean that that person is a failure. This concept of disassociating yourself with your work output is absolutely critical in the workplace. If you have a failure at work, if you put out some output and your boss says, "This really missed the mark," then just remember that that doesn't mean that you are a failure. It means you had an idea at one point in time and that idea wasn't great. But you'll have other ideas that will probably be better. And then more ideas that will probably be even worse. I'm sorry, that's just how it goes. Also, keep in mind that if you fail at work or in anything that you do, you are in great company. Nobody is perfect. Failure is inevitable. It is part of being a human being. So be comfortable with failure, recognize that your output does not define you, and just shake off those failures when they happen. So there you have it. Failure is inevitable, but you are not a failure. I promise. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this video, please press that thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you want to hear more content from me, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much, and we'll talk later. Bye.